toward your destination. Though you may find from time to time complication. Bite your lip and take the trip. Though there may be wet road ahead and you cannot slip, just move on up. For peace you'll find into the steeple of beautiful people where there's only one kind. So hush not, child, and don't cry. Your folks might understand you by and by. Move on up and keep on wishing. Remember your dream is your only scheme, so keep on pushing. Take nothing less than the supreme best. Do not obey rumors people say, but you can pass the test. Just move on up to a greater day. With just a little faith, if you put your mind to it, you can surely do it. Just move on up. Move on up. We move on up. Watch out, we just move on up. We move on up. Move on up.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our 2021 Black in Boulder Martin Luther King celebration event. Before we move on, we first want to honor the indigenous peoples on whose traditional territory we now reside, who have history, traditions, languages, and stories of resistance born of the land. Colorado's Front Range is home to the Arapaho, Cheyenne, Ute, and many native peoples. My name is Selassie Atiasi, originally from Ghana and founder of the band Selassie and the Fa Fa family. I moved to Boulder in 20-year old daughter learned about her royal heritage during our last visit to Ghana. She was so excited to come back and share with her friends here in Boulder who are all white. Unfortunately, when she did that, some of them laughed at her and told her that she could not be a princess because she's black. Now, for several weeks, I watched her go through self doubt and self esteem issues. And that was when my wife and I began looking for ways to make a difference. So, this past June, we organized a concert on our lawn and we raised $5,000 for the Black Lives Matter and the Colorado Freedom Fund. And the Colorado Freedom Fund was able to use the funds to bail out Black fathers who were in jail and could not afford to bail themselves out. After that, I saw another opportunity and I consulted Nyama Soa, who has lots of experience in this area. Unfortunately, Nyama has been feeling really burnt out from years and years of activism work, and he initially didn't want to be part of it. But after a few months of bugging him, he finally gave in, and I'm so glad that he did. I'm also so glad that Michelle Simpson and Norma Johnson and Musa Starseed joined the planning committee, which has brought us to where we are at this very moment. Our hope for this event is to highlight the Black experience in Boulder and foster a discussion about racism. We will be enjoying a wonderful panel discussion, some poetry and music, and we also get to watch a trailer from an upcoming documentary, which is a relevant documentary about Boulder. On that note, I have the pleasure to introduce to you the great artist and activist, Norma Johnson.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to our program. So, I have a piece, a poem that I want to share with you, and it's from my collection of poems for my white friends. This one is called Best Parts. I am so vast, so luminous, so incredibly expansive that I am astounded on a continual basis that I can even fit into this body, into this mind, into this room. The vastness of my lusciousness extends before me like a red carpet, welcoming the world to perch upon my wings, to take flight, to soar, to celebrate this gift we have of each other. And yet, when I come into those rooms where there is no space for my vastness, my luminosity, my lusciousness, where my wings fold in and my breath is left behind me. The best parts of me are left out. And they didn't even notice that I was not there. Thank you for allowing me to share that with you. So, to just let you know what you're in for next in this show that we have, we're going to actually view a video next, and it's testimonies from various residents, past and present, of Boulder. And they're going to be sharing something about their experience and their insights and thoughts about being Black in Boulder. And then after the testimonies, we will have a video, a music video by Selassie Atiasi and the Fafa family. And during this music video, we want you to know that you have the ability to make comments and share some thoughts in the Q&A that you'll find on your Zoom panel. So we invite you to do that. And we also invite you to really take time to listen to these testimonials that people have taken the time to do for us for this program. And we thank them very, very much for that. So Musa, take it away. Thank you.
Well, my experience started out in Boulder with Naropa Institute. It was Institute at that time. And it was also about being in a beautiful environment, in an environment where people were trying to live a more contemplative, holistic lifestyle.
I first hitchhiked to Boulder, Colorado in the early 70s, not long after their first African-American mayor was elected. That was unique and a pioneering event for the city as well as for the nation. There were lots of hippies still among us at that time, young hippies and traveling Grateful Dead. There was plenty of music on Pearl Street, lots of art.
Being Black in Boulder takes some getting used to. You have to get used to being the only brown-skinned person in the room, and you have to get used to people expecting you to be a representative of your race.
I was fired from New Age Foods, which was then right across the street from Naropa. Basically, Hannah Kroger came upstairs one day where I was working in the restaurant and walked immediately. She saw me in an apron and walked over to my supervisor and said, "We can't have this Black woman working here." So I was let go, and the way they do it is, they let go 2 or 3 other people and said that they had let me go because they were cutting out the lunch hour, or something like that.
I want to share this incident that just happened to me and my friends last week at a restaurant in Boulder. We walked into this famous restaurant with heated patio, with tables 6 feet apart. We sat in the car, I was like, what's going on? They don't feel good. It's like, oh, this man just came to kick us out to stand in the cold to wait for our food. So I said, this is not good. I don't feel good about it. So we turned around and went back. I was like, no, there was a lot of table. Why you could at least ask them to move to a different table if you needed a particular table, but not to kick them out to go and stand in the cold. They are new people and I wanted to show them the culture, and that didn't feel good. So
there was a group giving a presentation, and they were white students, and they had a picture of Venus, the tennis player, and her hair was relaxed, and they were making comments on her appearance and how her hair was straight because she was trying to assimilate to white culture. My hand went right up, and that's one of those moments where it was important to be a representative of my race, to set the record straight. If you see an African American woman with her hair relaxed, that does not mean that she is not identifying herself as a Black woman or has some shame in it. It just means she wanted to change her hairstyle.
Yes, it has its adversities. But then when there has been that, the community has reacted. I can remember at one point where I was fortunate enough to come across a group who were one of the original founders of the Martin Luther King celebration here in Boulder. Aya Madrood, Janet Heimer, Artie Dixon, Betty Ball, Rocky Mountain Peace and Justice, and the Black Women of Boulder chapter, along with the New Horizons preschool and Isolde Stewart. That group started off really small, but ended up doing so many great things for the city of Boulder.
As a Black person in Boulder, the protest on Pearl Street after George Floyd's murder last summer is an experience I will never forget. It was so empowering to be around so many African American community members and to hear them speak such truth.
But one thing I want to advise anybody of color living in Boulder is to speak up when they don't feel comfortable, because it makes a huge difference.
The advice I would give to Black newcomers here to Boulder is to not lose your Black identity.
There's Black people everywhere, in every part of the country. There has been for hundreds of years. And, we deserve to be here in Colorado, and this place can be as home for us as it is for any other people. It's just that those of us who are here and that are moving here, I think we almost have to look at it in the spirit of the Buffalo Soldiers, like we're almost like we're establishing something first so that later Black and people of color come and they actually feel more comfortable because there is a body here, and we can have an effect on the white citizens here and help them wake up to some of the stuff that they are asleep to and think that they are awake to.
Until the philosophy we hold one race superior and another inferior is finally and permanently discredited and abandoned. For every word is war. War until they're no longer first or second class citizens of a nation, until the color of a man's skin is of no more significance than the color of his eyes, of his humor, and until the basic human rights God will protect us all if He up look down from above and help the weak if you're strong. What? We don't need no trouble. See what we need is we go.
Good evening, everyone. Allow me to extend a warm welcome to each and every one of you. Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Michelle Simpson, and I will be the moderator of the panel that will begin shortly. We have 5 wonderful panelists, and we've tried to assemble a cross-generational group of individuals who live in Boulder, who have lived in Boulder, who occasionally live in Boulder. You know, in this Zoom world that we find ourselves inhabiting, true exchange can be really challenging, but we intend this to be an organic conversation. And so in that spirit, we would like to invite each and every one of you to submit a question, a comment, a thought in the Q&A. And please know that any questions or comments that you may submit will only be seen by the panelists and me. And I mention this in case you have any concerns about who may see your question. I want you to know that any questions and comments that you post will not be available in the public space. Again, they will be seen by the panelists and me. I also would like to extend a special invitation to those of you who came out this evening and those of you who came out this evening who identify as Black. Again, please submit your questions, comments, ideas, and thoughts. Our intention this evening is to center and elevate Black voices. And it's, again, something that we've tried to thread throughout our program. So we would like to do something that doesn't typically happen, either here in Boulder or any place else for that matter. We would like to prioritize your questions, comments, ideas, and thoughts. So again, if you identify yourself as Black, in your question, in your idea, in your comment, we will then, in fact, elevate those questions, prioritize those questions. So now what I would like to do is to invite the panel portion of this evening's gathering. And what I'm going to do is call each and every name, and folks will appear on the screen. So I will begin with Pedro Silva, Cinque Mason, Brianna Hill, Thomas Wyndham, Annette James, and the wonderful Norma Johnson will be joining us as well. So again, these are our panelists. I mentioned that we had 5, but we pulled Norma in and asked her if she would join as well. And so where I'd like to begin, panelists, is by thanking each and every one of you for coming out this evening and for opening your lives, yourselves, your experiences to one another, and to everyone who came out to this event this evening. So what I'm going to ask you to do, and maybe I'll go in the order in which I introduced everyone, and maybe I'll begin with you, Pedro, and ask you to very briefly introduce yourself. But in your introduction, if you wouldn't mind tying in or folding in your tie to Boulder, in other words, you know, how you would identify yourself here in Boulder, and also include how long you've been here.
Okay, so I'm actually a pastor at First Congregational Church in downtown Boulder. I've been here for just about 5.5 years plus, and my wife used to live here after college, and then we lived on the East Coast for a long time. And then after seminary, we were going to take a break for a year, and she wanted to come here to take the break, and we've been here ever since. And
it happens.
Yeah, the short version is God did it, because I don't know how it ended up being a year, and we've been here this long, and yeah, that's it.
Again, thank you for being here this evening. Cinque Mason.
I'm Cinque Mason. I've never actually lived in Boulder, but I got family in Boulder, and I've been coming to Boulder like my whole life. I live in Fort Collins right now for CSU. And my mom lives in Boulder right now, so I go there about once a month or twice a month.
Okay. And how long would you say both you and your mom have lived in Boulder or had a residence in Boulder?
Well, she lives there now. I live alone because of college, but she's been there for about 2 years now.
Years. Okay, great. Thank you. Brianna Hill.
Hello. Hi, y'all. My name is Brianna Hill, or Bree Hill, whichever one you want to call me. My pronouns are they, them, theirs only. And I was a student at the University of Colorado Boulder. I graduated in 2019, and I lived up in Boulder for all 4 years of my undergrad. So,
Okay, thanks, Bree.
Yeah.
Thomas Wyndham.
Your mute's on, Thomas.
Thank you. Thank you for, and excuse me for having the mute on.
I do it all the time.
I'm a 52-year resident of Boulder. I came here in 1969 with my wife, who was recently deceased. We have 3 children, all grew up here in Boulder. My youngest brother and I graduated from the University of Colorado at Boulder. I with my doctorate in psychology and him with his bachelor's degree. The family kind of followed me out here. Some of you may know about my mother. When she was alive, she lived here, Mabel Wyndham. Yeah, so it's one of those things, kind of like Pedro, you know, came here to go to school and figured after that was done, I was out of here. And here I am 52 years later.
I love that. Thank you, Thomas. Annette James.
So I'm Annette. I'm currently the president of the NAACP in Boulder. I was also active with United Black Women of Boulder Valley. I saw that came up. I came here in '79 and with no intentions of staying. And here I am as well. So I like to say that the universe has got a sense of humor. So it's not the kind of environment that I would have chosen if I was using my intellect. But I believe that everyone has the right to live here, and including Black people. So I put energy into trying to make that an enjoyable reality for Black folks.
And that, tell me, I'm sorry, I may have missed it. How long have you been in Boulder?
So it's going to be 41 years in a couple of weeks. So I came in '79.
Okay. So is Norma with us?
Yes, I am.
And it's Norma. So tell us a little something.
Yeah, well, God, I've been in Boulder for about probably over 25 years or so. And kind of like a lot of folks' stories, I had no idea I'd be here this long. I came, I thought I'd just be here for a little bit, and ended up still being here. And it's actually been a very beautiful place to live. I'm a nature gal, so I just love being in the foothills and access to these mountains and trails and stuff.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, thank you. Thank you again, everyone, for doing this. You know, one of the first questions I wanted to ask you, just to get the ball rolling in terms of our conversation, is this. You know, as Black folks, as Black people, we don't always have the opportunity in Boulder. I lived in Boulder for over 14 years to come together to share our experiences. And I'm really interested in hearing about what's on your heart right now. Again, the theme of this program is Black in Boulder. But what does that bring up for you? What does that get you thinking about? You saw some earlier testimonials, you've heard some music, you've heard Norma's fabulous poetry. What's on your heart right now, this evening, that you would be comfortable speaking to?
Should we just jump in, Michelle?
Please jump in.
Yeah. So I think sometimes being Black in Boulder requires you to do introspective work. Like, why am I really here? Which is a question that I've asked myself pretty much at least once a month for 40 years. So I think once you do that, though, it keeps you true to yourself, and you kind of accept the struggle. You know, I think that I get it mostly when white people will say to me, "Oh dear, aren't we so lucky to live in Boulder? You know, oh, this is so beautiful and wonderful. We're so lucky to be here." And I'm not real sure where they're coming from, because I don't feel like it is a lucky event. Do I enjoy the beauty of Boulder? Absolutely. I'm a rural girl. I love nature. I hike all the time. Do I value and appreciate that? Absolutely. But does that make it utopic? So I think on a human level, that's when, the questions start to arise. The interaction between people, is white people always think that you're a newcomer. You just got here 2 weeks ago, of course, because they don't see you all the time. They don't think you exist. So I think, everything kind of centers around that, right? Either you're novel, or they don't see you. So, I mean, it's just that kind of always working on the humanity of yourself and trying to apply that to see the humanity in others. Yeah.
Thanks, Annette. How about someone else? What's on your heart right now? What's on your heart this evening? And again, it could be connected to what you saw in one of the testimonials, something the music brought up, or just something, again, that you've been thinking about. Bree, I see. It looks like you're ready.
Yeah. I guess for me, like what I think about, or like what's on my heart right now, is like the people who I know still up in Boulder. So like my friends who are still in college, since Boulder is a very like college town, I really like think a lot about their safety and a lot about how the university doesn't really care a lot about their Black students, their Black populations, and like they dismiss their goals, they dismiss like what they want to achieve on campus. And so I really like try and stick with my friends, where I'm like, hey, what do you need from me? Do you like want to talk? Do you want to like complain about why Boulder, really is trash? Like, let's talk, let's chit chat, maybe come down to Denver, we can talk. So that's always on my mind. I really try to like keep the connections that I've made on campus and like really try to like get my friends like out of Boulder. They all have the same like thought of like, once I graduate, I'm out. And that was me. Like once I graduated, I was out. I only came up for like speaking engagements and that was it. Y'all wouldn't see me. I'd get on the FF1. I'd go back down to Denver. You'd never see me ever again. So like really trying to take care of my friends who are still up in Boulder is on my heart.
Bree, let me ask you something. You mentioned safety. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, for sure. I think the reason why I said safety is when I was up at Boulder, my safety was always like jeopardized, but like subtly. It would be like the stares from the other students or like the comments that they would make where like it would just make it not a safe space for me. Also to like some of the groups who have very strong opinions about, liberal rights or like Black lives don't matter, all lives matter. And then seeing them protest on campus, like at the fountains, at the UMC, and just seeing like how blatantly they don't respect Black lives and how blatantly they don't respect Black students on this campus. And the same can be said like what, the Black Student Alliance is doing now and what they did last semester in the fall of like trying to get the university to do something, trying to get, their rules and their goals like passed, but the university is just like, oh, this is a nice piece of paper. Next. So like their safety is out of the window always. So
Bree, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else who would like to respond to the heart question, that heart-centered question that I raised?
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
You've been here longer, Thomas. I'll let you go.
Uh-huh.
Okay. For me, the two things that come to my mind immediately are my children and other Black people, those I know and those I don't know in the community, because I I came into the community with a voice to some degree because I'm a pastor. And so, because I know that there are other people, like even today, one of my friends from Boulder, a black guy, used to go to Second Baptist, and he left Boulder because of his experience of racism. And he didn't tell me before he left. And he was like, the, I don't want to get too much into it, from an emotional perspective right now, but I hadn't talked to him in like a week and a half, and I joked and said, "What'd you do, a skateboard or something like that?" And he was like, "Yeah, I left. I went back to Virginia," which I'm also from Virginia. He went back to the area where we both grew up, or we both are from. And I thought about him today, and he's lived in the South. He knows what it's like. He lived in Texas, but it was Boulder that broke him. Like after all the years of living with racism more blatantly, Boulder broke him because he couldn't tell who was for him and who was against him. Basically, it was harder to tell here, and that was psychologically exhausting. And whereas in the other places, he knew kind of more clearly who was and wasn't for him. And I think that part um, gets me. But it also makes me feel like I have to say something because of um, people like my friend who worked in a corporate, worked in software, and my children and other children who, if they say something, they it's not that I'm not taking a risk when I say something, but because of the context in which I speak, one would hope that with the context that says love your neighbor as yourself, my context is going to wrestle with it a little bit more than it would be if someone like my friend, he spoke out about it in his company about what he was experiencing, and it got dismissed, and then he couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm fortunate enough, if you will, to be in a context where I can openly speak about it without this, and I'm aware of that, and so I feel like I have to say something for the other people in the community who may say something and take a like family, financial risk,
Yeah.
or the other factors.
Exactly. No, Pedro, thanks for sharing that. It's very thoughtful. Thomas, I want to hear from you, and then after Thomas, you share some of your thoughts with us. We have several questions from participants that I'd like to again have you respond to. So, Thomas, jump in.
Yeah, I was looking forward, and I'm pleased to be here tonight because living in Boulder, I don't really have what I would call a consistent opportunity to be with and speak with and share time with Black people. So, and I suspect there are multiple factors contributing to that. But I don't feel that there's a place, a safe place for at least Black people, particularly in my case, Black men, to congregate and share our experiences. For example, when I was a student, and Boulder has changed dramatically from the time that I came here to now, but when I was a student, we had places that we could go and we could congregate and share our experiences and grow from those experiences and come out stronger. Today, there may be a place, but if there is, I don't know where it is.
Got it. No, thank you, Thomas. Thank you. Okay, panelists, we've got some questions, and I'm going to read one. As a Black woman, when I talk about the lack of Black people in Boulder and how much it bothers me, people say to me, quote, "If you want to live around Black people, move somewhere where they live." Have you ever been told that, and how would you respond? So again, have you ever been told that, and how would you respond? Anybody want to take that? Any takers for that one?
I can answer this question.
Okay, great.
And someone has said that to me in the degree of like go back to where Black people are, but like a lot of people are like go back to Africa. And my answer to them is, are you going to pay for my ticket? Like, are you going to pay for my passport for me to go there? Because I will go there if you pay for all the things. If you give me a house, give me a job over there, like all the things. Like, are you going to pay me? If not, why are you talking to me?
So that's been your response. Okay.
That is my answer. If they're not going to pay for you to go somewhere, like full luxuries, full benefits, they have no reason to talk to you. They have no reason to like challenge your existence. So,
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that. Anyone else want to respond?
Yeah, I haven't gotten the specific of, well, go back to or go someplace else. But what I get, which is kind of a different version, but the same, is, oh, Boulder is so white. And gee, where are all the people of color? And, usually I say something like, well, there's a reason it looks like this. And you living here comfortably with that is part of it.
Thank you, Ms. Norma. I like it. I've got another question that I want to share and then come back to some other thoughts and ideas. Reads as follows. I am a Black male who lived in Boulder in the late 70s. I attended junior high and high school in Boulder. Has Boulder experienced racial tension in the past years, as I'm curious of what's taken place since leaving to attend college in Texas? So who wants to take that? Someone who's trying to make sense of what has happened since they graduated from high school. Who wants to give an update on whether or not there has been racial tension or racial tensions in Boulder?
I'd volunteer one of the people who's been here the longest.
So that would be either Annette or Thomas.
Well, clearly there have been racial tensions in Boulder since 1979. And, we'll witness some of that when we see the preview of the film clip at the end of this program. Boulder is, the notion that Boulder is a bubble for me is an illusion. Boulder is not a bubble. Boulder just happens to be a place in America where the economic standing of most of its people, particularly white people, is higher than it is in most other communities of its size. And the same pernicious racism that one would experience anywhere in the United States of America, someone from time to time is likely to experience that in Boulder. For me, my concern about Boulder is my concern about, well, America in particular, and pretty much the world, and that is how we can comfortably reside along the side of the practice of institutional and functional racism. How we can be comfortably silent while the institutions, many, and I can speak to those in Boulder, are holding a stranglehold on children of color and poor children generally. So for me, the notion that, oh, isn't Boulder wonderful? Sure, Boulder's wonderful, so are many other places, but that doesn't make Boulder exempt from the types of systemic oppression that we see throughout the country.
Mm-hmm. Now, well, Thomas, thank you. I said we were going to get back to, again, our larger discussion, but I lied. Bree, there is a question for you that I would like to share. And let me get to it. I had it up. Give me just a second. Here it is. Queer Black person asking. Question for Bree. When you introduced yourself this evening, you added an emphatic only after your they, them, their pronouns. Would you please speak to your experiences of navigating Black space as a member of the LGBTQ community, Boulder or elsewhere? Thank you.
Wow, thanks for that question. Oh man, that's a real question. I would say for me, navigating my queerness and my transness in Black spaces, both in Boulder and in like I'm in Aurora now. I moved back to Aurora. Is the same trickiness. So it's really hard to like say my pronouns and like have people like acknowledge my pronouns. A lot of people like say she or her or think that I'm a woman, and I'll be like, no, come back. I said they, them only. No she, no her, no ifs, ands, or buts. And then they look at me like I'm wild or my mind isn't all the way up there. And I'm like, Black trans people exist, Black queer people exist. And it's the same to be said when I was up at Boulder. I was CU Boulder's Cutie Poc president for 4 years.
Long time.
A long time. They like gave it to me when I was like a freshman, I think. And they're like, go, be free. And I was like, what? Okay, thanks. And I tried really hard to make spaces for Black queer people and Black trans people, because you have GSA where it's very white dominant, like not a lot of Cutie Poc people go there. And then you have BSA when like you try to talk about queer politics, you try to talk about transness, they look at you like you just brought in a huge horse and they don't understand why you have the horse there.
So, stop you for a moment. So you said GSA, that's what, Gay Student Alliance?
Yeah, so gay, I think it's Gender and Sexuality Alliance now.
GSA is the Black Student Alliance?
Mm-hmm.
Just for folks who may not know.
Yeah, Boulder has a lot of acronyms. So in those two spaces, it was really hard for me to like be my full self. Like I had to be like super Black and radical in like the BSA, and then like super like silent and timid in the GSA, and not call out, their racism, not call out their anti-Blackness. And the same can be said with like some of my friend groups. Like when I first got up to Boulder, before the amazing Miramontes and Arts and Sciences program took me up, and there was like, here's Boulder, go explore. My first year, I was trying to find Black people to hang out with, and I was like, Black people, please, where are you? And like, it would be a huge population of football players, and I'd be like, hi, my name is Bree, I'm queer, and they'd be like, ooh, no. And then I'd go to like the cafeteria, and I'm like, hi, my name is Bree, I'm queer, and they're like, ooh, no. And I'm like, well, I'll make my own space then. And so I made my own space. I forced people to acknowledge my presence, to acknowledge my existence. So that means using my pronouns. That means accepting the fact that Black queer people exist, that Black trans people exist, and we're going to continue to exist, and not taking ifs, ands, or buts about it. I was very unapologetic. You can ask anyone who has gone to college with me. I stand my ground, and I don't really let people push me over. So the same can be said in Aurora as well. I don't let people push me over when it comes to my pronouns, when it comes to my identity.
Thank you.
Yeah, hopefully that answered your question. I realize I just went on a tangent, but thank you for that real question.
These are good. Simke, I wanted to give you an opportunity to respond to the question I asked everyone initially in regards to kind of what may be on your heart when you think in terms of Black and Boulder.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Michelle. Thank you. I was kind of thinking about this question. I was thinking about, do white people notice it? Do they notice how they treat us? Boulder, it's kind of like to me, it's kind of like a rich sundown town. The way white people will look at you when you're walking down the street, they make it very obvious that they think that you're supposed to be from another town.
Mm-hmm.
They'll walk around you, they'll ask you like stupid questions, or they'll look at you crazy. And I've always wondered, do white people notice, or do they treat each other like that? That's what's been weighing on my heart a lot.
There's a question for you, Sinke, here in the Q&A. My 12-year-old son has a question for Sinke. He notices teachers asking brown and Black kids with unique names where they are from. As a Black man with a unique name, do you get asked about that? If so, what's that like for you?
Yeah, all the time. But I have a lot of pride in my name. I hold like the name has a lot of value, and it has a lot of like significance going back from my grandfather. I was named after my father. Luckily for me, I'm pretty connected, and I know my family tree. A lot of Black folks don't know their family tree past like grandma or great grandpa, but I know about like 7 generations back. So I hold my name with a lot of pride, and it's just, and you have something unique. Other people just want to know what it is. So I'm openly sharing it to people.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
We have a question from the first friend I made in Boulder, the first Black friend I made in Boulder. So I've got to position this question to the panel. I have to pose it to you. My first thought actually about my experience in Boulder, first thought actually was, compared to what? Much of my experience, given my work in dance, holistic health, and healing, I was often in a white environment. I found that I have to fight for my voice from wherever I've been. What stood out a lot was the experience with my young son. Who would feel that he could do and be and have the same things his affluent white friends had? Had to have the talk with him on a lot of levels. Can any of you relate? So we have, I know, some parents on the panel, and one of the questions I had for you that I think in many ways connects to the questioner's question has to do with how do you raise healthy, whole Black children in Boulder?
I'll jump in on that since I brought up my kids in the beginning. For me, it's important that I, for lack of a better expression, take the hits in front of my children. What I mean by that is that whatever psychological or emotional, physical or whatever, I feel like I had to stand in front of my kids so that they are not spared, but somewhat spared to be able to have as much of a authentic child experience as they can have while also keeping them educated. Like I took my kid with me to Atlanta and Alabama and took her on a civil rights trail. Mm-hmm. And let her spend time because she doesn't grow up in the South. She's grown up here. So I take her to spaces so that she can experience and get a deeper sense of herself and a deeper sense of history and things like that. And a sense that there are people who came before her who took the hits before me. So I wouldn't have to take as many hits, and then I'll take it. And then hopefully she and her little sister will get a sense that they can hold their head up. Like I mean, I don't know if I'm tough on her or not, but I never let her hold her head in shame. Like if she ever tries to like hold her head in shame, I'm like, nope, you're not allowed to have a shame head in front of me because too many people went through too many things for you to lower your head like that. So you're gonna have to hold your head up. And if I don't pretend that the world doesn't treat her differently or won't treat her differently. And I think if you're raising your kids in the context like this, you have to be honest with them, but you also have to instill a sense of history and cultural awareness, and then own your Blackness, you know. And I don't want to go on a diatribe, but I'm gonna just say one other thing because obviously my name is Pedro, and a lot of people, because of my name, they make assumptions about, you know, well, are you black or some other statement that doesn't make sense because they're misinformed or uneducated. No offense to them, I'm just saying about the context and the diaspora and all those other factors. And unfortunately, a lot of Black people are too, because we've been educated in a system that sees us as less. And so sometimes there's some of us that will distance ourselves from our Blackness unconsciously, trying to fit into the false normative of what it means of white being normal. Mm-hmm. And we'll buy into the thing of like that because we have a different name or we come from another, we're Black, but we come from somewhere outside of America, that we're different, or, you know, all those complexities. And to me, all of that comes from the notion of white supremacy, and it infiltrates us. And I feel like the best thing you can do is to work on yourself. If you're raising kids out here, work on yourself, hold your head up, know your history, and, you know, teach your kids the same.
Yeah, yeah.
I say one thing, even though I don't have no kid.
Absolutely. You don't have to be a parent to speak to this.
So one way that my father really raised me was to have a level head through all things. And he'd always say, like, your nana, your grandpa went through too much, I went through too much, and you're gonna go through too much to be hicked up on this. Like, you gotta keep moving forward no matter what. And you could do anything anybody tells you. I mean, you can do anything you want to do. And everybody's gonna have their opinions, but like, that's not you at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And you're like, all of your ancestors, they're holding you up. It's not just you.
Yeah.
Right.
Love that. Thank you, Cinque, for sharing that. It reminds me of my grandmother. Anytime I would get down and out, and she would always say, my grandmother finished the 4th grade, and she would always say to me, girl, don't act like you ain't got no people. And again, that reminder of where I had come from. Speaking of which, Miss Norma, would you be able to drop in some spoken word for us? And then we'll come back to our larger discussion. Would you be open to that?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm going to share a piece called Like Air. We were kicking around some stories about our childhood. I was with a friend of mine who's white, and she asked me, did you talk about race with your parents? And it felt the same as if I would ask her if she talked about air or breath with her parents. Race was in the air I breathed every day. It was there when I walked out my door, went to school or the store. Every time I watched TV, looked at the newspaper or the images on billboards and products we used. It was always there. It was always there. Race was in the car with me. When my brother drove us to pick up my mom from the white people's house she cleaned, where we had to go to the back door to get her. Race was in the way we didn't cross white people and their expectation that what they were saying and doing was more important and better than our contribution. It was in the promotion my dad couldn't get, even though he held the study groups for the white guys that passed him up. Race was in the way we could get loud and raucous and full of fun and aliveness when we gathered together without white folks around. It was in the sound of the soothing, loving tones of, baby, come on over here and give your auntie some sugar. And a hug that enveloped all of me, squeezed me into warm, ample bosoms with a crowning kiss, sealing the pact that told me I belonged here. Race was in the broken down knees of my grandmother, who had to get down on them year after year to scrub white folks' floors. And it was in the bottle my grandfather drank from to blur the reality of his manhood and inability to provide for his family. Race was in the way my mom made sure white folks called her Florence. The black folk in town only knew her as Sis, the nickname she had since she was a kid, 'cause she was the only girl in a family of brothers. Even my dad called her that. Race was in the way my tightly kinked hair had to be greased and straightened with a hot comb to be acceptable and in compliance. My sometimes singed ears and back of neck scars being my merit badges for a model Negro. Race was wondering how my Italian friend, who browned almost as dark as me in the summer, could still be considered white. It was going to the library with my mom when I was 5 years old and digging out from the big pile of books the one called Little Black Sambo. I loved that book because it had a black boy and tigers. And what could be better than that? And every time we took that book back to the library, Mama would try again to get me to choose a different one. Race was in the way I felt like I needed to be extra diligent to represent the whole Negro race. Every time I was the only or one of a few in a whole group of white folks. It was in the way the colored part of town up against the railroad tracks, and we would jump up and steady my grandmother's china cabinet when the train rumbled by. And it was wondering why tans and tanning lotions were so popular, while those of us with the real brown skin were so despised. It was having my light-skinned godmother pinch my nose so it would be more like a white nose instead of a black one. And those flesh-colored crayons and Band-Aids never did look anything like the flesh on my bones. And what was it you asked? Did we talk about race? Well, yes, some. But it didn't always have a name, you know. Mostly it was just there. Like air.
Norma, thank you so much. You and I have talked about the poetry of Ntozake Shange and her poem, to what a poem should do, that line that I absolutely love. I absolutely love what you read tonight. What you shared with us reminds me of the line from her poem. It reads, A poem should happen to you like cold water or a kiss. Thank you for both. Thank you for both. There is a comment I want to share before we get back to our conversation. And Sinke, I think you were the one who influenced it. Holding your name with pride. Our own names are basic to recognize our own identities and how we share those with the world. As a member of the Latinx community, I ask for people to use my full name. My history lays on it, and I carry that with pride, humility, and respect. Thanks for sharing your lived experiences. Holding your name with pride. Our own names are basic to recognize our own identities and how we share those with the world. As a member of the Latinx community, again, I ask for people to use my full name. So I wanted to share that. And I also wanted to circle back to what we were discussing in terms of raising whole and healthy children in Boulder, in case anyone else wanted to dive into that pool, and if anybody had something they wanted to say about that. And again, you don't have to be a parent to respond.
Well, I think I raised two kids in Boulder, 10 years apart. So they're two only children, both genders. I think, I was very clear from the start that they were Black, and that was important. And that fitting in was overrated. And, as they got older, and I taught them to own this conversation around race and being Black. If they're going to ask you to speak for all Black people, then speak for all Black people. You set the tone. You decide how you're going to represent Black people. You're going to be fully educated around Blackness, both history, both real and imagined. And you're going to create self-esteem around that. And as a parent, you got to be willing to fight and demand. You have to be an advocate for your kid. And you can never give the system an ounce, because if you do, because everything that goes wrong with the Black kid obviously comes from, one's innate race, family. And so, but I did give my kids a space to express misery, right, and pain. But I was not that person for them. Luckily, they had grandmother that whenever they needed someone to commiserate with, call her. But that works out really well because kids need to be empowered, and you need to have demands in a community like this. But they also need that greater support. And you can't do it all. I don't think you can raise healthy children in a nuclear way. So they need community. I encourage all Black folks here, when you see a Black kid, to acknowledge their presence. They go into a school where they don't get acknowledged unless something goes wrong, when they're overly visible. So I make if I see a Black kid, I'm going to say something to them. I'm going to say, how nice to see you. You're so handsome. You're so beautiful. You're nice to see you. And I think that's what we have to do as adults in Boulder for Black children. And we got to just keep giving them some space to be little kids, and to make the mistakes that kids make, and then get it reinforced from family saying that, it's okay. You don't, it's like Pedro said, you don't have to hang your head. Speak up. You're beautiful. You're intelligent, and make that so. But I unfortunately, and sometimes you just got to move your kid. My daughter fit in too well in Boulder. So I was like, oh no, we cannot do this. I'm going to take you to Denver to school. Because it was important to me that a kid learns how to interact with their own people. And, my son was very different than my daughter. When you taught my son Black history, he was empowered by it. When I taught it to my daughter, she was saddened by it. So the the approach had to be very different. So she needed to have a more day-to-day interaction. So she went to Denver School of the Arts, created relationships with Black people. And I have to say, I think that they both are very strong Black people, very wise, and very comfortable in their own skin.
Thank you for that. We have received numerous questions, and so anyone who has not had their question or comment identified or had a question responded to, blame me, because we received quite a few, and it was hard kind of moving through those. But what I wanted to make certain we had time for, because this was just really important to me, and I hope important to all of you as well, is I wanted to talk about Black joy. Black pain is always on display. It's always on display. I was talking the other day about the fact that in the aftermath of George Floyd's death in May of last summer, that his killing, his murder, appeared on television over 5,000 times. You talk about trauma and re-traumatizing. Individuals seeing that, Black folks looking at the life leaving his body. So Black pain is often on display. And at this point, it's interesting, many people conflate Blackness and pain. And I would love it. We have this fabulous panel. I would love to hear from each and every one of you how you see Black joy, how you've experienced Black joy, okay? And I'm gonna give us a working definition, and if you don't like it, toss it out. But as we look at Black pain, I think, or Black joy in again, relationship to Black pain, but Black joy I see as really unfettered, kind of hands up. Norma in her poem used the term raucous, but just that raucous, unfettered enjoyment of being Black without apology, hesitancy, shame. It's about showing up. It's about showing out. It's an act of resistance. It's an act of rebellion. And especially in a world where anti-Blackness is everywhere, So can you tell us about the last time you experienced Black joy? What did it feel like? What did it taste like? What did it smell like? What did it feel like? Remember, this is the family hour, people. But can you share that with us? Anyone who would like to kind of dive into that part of the pool this evening to talk about Black joy and perhaps the last time you experienced it?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in on that. For me, it was organizing this program. It's rare that I get to just enjoy and just dive in with Black folks to create something like this. And it was pure joy. It was pure joy. There was nothing that we needed to feel apologetic around. We could just be ourselves. We could just interrelate the way we do without adjusting that in any way. And we would joke around, and we would take care of business, and we would just do all of that in a Black container. And that just made my heart soar.
I love that. Thomas, can you give us an example perhaps of Black joy that you've experienced recently, maybe even today?
I don't know if it's Black joy. I guess it's Black joy because I'm Black.
It is.
But for me, listening to Miles Davis and Wayne Shorter.
A jazz man. Okay. Well, thank you.
So I just like to add, while I was saying that, talking with my children and grandchildren over the phone today.
Okay. And that brought you some joy. That's wonderful.
Yes.
That's wonderful. Someone else. How about you, Sin-K?
Yeah, I'll talk about a little Black joy. So one thing that's like brought me a lot of Black joy lately is, are you guys familiar with the Harlem Renaissance in the early 1900s?
Yeah.
I wrote a paper that we're going through a neo Harlem Renaissance right now. Through like we're having an increased amount of representation on film, not just as actors, but also as directors and story writers. So
Absolutely.
a whole neo Harlem Renaissance going on. And then I organized a Juneteenth protest in Denver, like right after George Floyd and everything. And obviously there was a lot of pains and whatnot because of everything going on. But there was so many Black people, and we were playing jazz music and we were dancing up and down the streets. It was like one of the best things I've ever like done. And like I remember when I was a little one, a little boy, and my dad would be like saying what's up to like any Black person, and I'd always be like, what was that about? Like, you don't even know the guy. And after all the pain and trauma and stuff that's happened this year, like my generation has come closer of Black men. And I know we're all about like gang banging, and unfortunately, but we've come closer. And like random Black folk will come up to you and say like, stay safe out there, you know, and then we'll just split. And it's like, it's pretty nice, you know, because all you see about on TV and music is division between like my age group. And through trauma, we're coming together.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Someone else. Bree, Pedro.
I can go. I can give two examples of Black joy. I would say my first example of Black joy like really happens in Boulder. When I was up at Boulder, I would see all of my friends and like they would like just get their hair done or they'd get their nails done, and I'd be like, okay hair, okay nails, like okay skin, like I see you looking fine and everything. And we would just do this like right when we were walking to class, and people would be like, what is wrong? And I'd be like, y'all fine. I love y'all. Look at y'all hair. And that's just like my Black joy always. That I just think about it all the time. Yeah, and another example of Black joy. I don't know. Every time I get to spend time with my partner is always Black joy. Especially just like Black joy in the sense of queerness. Like I get to spend time with this loving human who also loves me, and just like loving another Black person is quite magical and quite rebellious, if you will. And yeah, those are my two examples of Black joy. I do like the first one though, because I'm also texting my friend who's like watching this, and I'm just like, she's the one person who I'd always be like, okay, Ruth, I see you with the hair, with the nails, with the skin, coming through with all these outfits, looking fine. Snaps, not.
Is that my Ruth?
Yes. Yes.
I just had to check.
The one and only Ruth, yes.
I just had to check. Okay. Okay. How about you, Pedro?
Let's see. Well, after the George Floyd murder, we were at a Black Lives Matter protest in Boulder, and my friend who was in the video earlier, Katrina Dawn Miller, she's a filmmaker, a local Boulder filmmaker. And we made a music video together because I wrote a song called New Me, and she took footage from the protests, like really good footage, and combined it with the music video with my song, because I rap not as much as I would like to, but I do sometimes. And so she took a song and just made a really cool video, and that was really awesome. Because that's a part of myself that I would love to express more that I just don't. So and even though it was a tragic thing that brought it together, I wrote the song because of my feeling of another murder that had happened prior to that. So it was good to see that come together. I mean, it was like joy mixed with pain, which is kind of rough. But then I think that that's the one thing that Black people can do pretty well in terms of surviving, and in terms of like just like comedy and things like that come out of pain. Yeah. And actually, now that I'm saying that, I had a Black joy yesterday because I like a friend in Lafayette black guy that we haven't talked in a long time because like somehow the George Floyd thing like put us in different spaces, not against each other, but just in our own like shells because we were trying to deal with it in our own ways, in our own context. And so we haven't talked in a while. And I was telling him a story, which this is maybe inappropriate, but I'm just gonna pretend like it's only black people here. And
Okay.
and so
There are Black people here, Pedro. Go ahead.
yeah. So I actually got called the N-word last week by a homeless person that I was giving some money to.
Okay.
Which is it's a longer story, but he called me 3 different racial epithets. It is not funny, but sometimes when stuff like that happens, with a black person, it can become funny.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I told a friend who's white, who's up here, about it. But when I said it, I said that person said N-word. And I just said N-word. Like, you know what I mean? I didn't say the word, I just said N-word.
Mhm.
But when I was talking to my black friend about it, who lives in the same town where it happened, I said, yeah, man, a person called me, and then I said it the other day without thinking anything. I just said to him, like, I got called this the other day by a person. He was like, you still gave him money? I said, yeah. And I ended up, and then we started laughing about it. And I said, you know, I walk around a lot of times concerned that somebody is going to call me that, like around here. And how will I react or respond in that situation? And I said, so in a way, he was like a racist angel that came and said it to me. I was saying it as a joke. So I said, it's like a racist angel that got it off my head because now somebody just said it. So now I don't have to worry about somebody say it anymore. And then we started cracking up laughing about it. And he was like, oh, yeah, that's your angel. Ha, 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 ha. And then I said, and you're my Black Lafayette angel because now I can say it to you without having to like worry about the filter and all the other stuff like that. So we were cracking up. I mean, it was our pain again, but we were cracking up laughing, like the kind of laughing that you can do when somebody knows what you've been through.
Right.
That can't happen. At least in my experience, hasn't happened except for when people know what you go through. And last thing I'll say about it is Dick Gregory. I don't know how people. I know the N-word is complicated.
Yeah.
But Dick Gregory actually said, like, don't let people take it from you. Like, just like because we took it and did something with it, and don't let anybody take it from you because it's ours now. And it's a complicated thing, but I don't know. It's complicated. I probably need to write a book about it.
We'll read it. Listen, folks, I am so sorry. I'm looking at the time and I'm realizing we're getting close to that time of needing to kind of close this out. So what I want to make certain to do is Annette, Brianna, Cinque, Pedro, Norma, Thomas, I want to say to each and every one of you again, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your willingness to be here. And being with you this evening has brought this Black woman some real joy. So as we kind of close things out, I can definitely speak to that from the heart. And I know I speak for the Black and Boulder planning team when I say how deeply grateful we are to all of you for generously and graciously sharing your voices, your experiences, yourselves. We never have enough time. And so I want to say from your heart, from my heart, excuse me, to yours, I want to say just such a heartfelt thank you. And so folks, guess what? We have some dessert for you. We would like to share a trailer of the documentary film developed by the heart and mind of the magnificent Katrina Miller. Pedro just mentioned her. And those of you who are watching the testimonials who were here for that may have heard her voice. And this film, again, was developed by Katrina and her creative partners. You may remember, as I said, hearing her testimonial earlier. Her film is titled, "This Is Not Who We Are." This is not who we are. Credit for the film goes to Landlocked Films and Black Cat Video Productions. Katrina's film really explores the gap that exists between Boulder's very progressive self-image. Boulder's in kind of thrall of its exceptionalism. And it looks at the gap between that self-image and the lived experiences of its Black residents. And we are really confident that you'll be bowled over by this trailer. but I want to say filmmaking ain't cheap, folks. And it's time intensive and it's a very expensive venture. So please watch and enjoy, but also consider financially supporting the completion of this film. The expectation is that the film will be completed over the summer. Information for making a donation will roll with the credits. So here we go. This is not who we are.
We are glad to be with you today to celebrate the legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
We're honored to present the trailer to our documentary work in progress, This Is Not Who We Are.
We want to honor the past and present of the resilient African American community in Boulder.
We hope to catalyze productive dialogue, allyship, and action to build a more equitable and inclusive future here and elsewhere.
I had a draw to Boulder. Boulder's a beautiful city. I came to Naropa University to begin my life.
You have a dangerous object in your hand and you're failing to put it down.
I'm picking up trash.
Put it down. You're being detained.
Your hand is on your weapon and you're gonna shoot me?
There's a reason why I didn't comply, and it was because I had not committed a crime.
I told you many times to put it down.
And you're holding a gun!
Put it down.
And you're holding a gun!
The city manager and police chief say this March 1st incident does not reflect the city's values. The city has been working on racial equality for a number of years.
I'm a business owner. I own property. I did everything you've asked of me, and you gave me nothing.
It goes back to our founding. Boulder was established with building lots costing $1,000 to make it an exclusive place.
The first African Americans lived usually on the fringes of the community because it was the cheapest land in town. Boulder did have an active Ku Klux Klan, and there were cross burnings as late as the 1940s.
There was a small but strong African American community when we arrived back in 1969. This was my home. Many of the young African Americans that I have encountered during my 50 years in Boulder have left Boulder.
The happiest place in America is Boulder, Colorado.
Boulder, Colorado. Yeah. And it has nothing to do with weed. Nothing. That is the most annoying thing about Boulder, is that Boulder thinks it's better than everywhere else on Earth.
People like it here. They're comfortable. Everyone else looks like them. Everyone else perceives the world the way they do. And so if people don't see it as a problem, then there's going to be no efforts to change something that they're fine with.
I think that we have to call into question the conception of beautifying Boulder. Even if it's not conscious, if we keep raising the prices, if we keep raising the taxes, if we keep doing all these kinds of things, you're obviously going to box some folks out. So then it becomes institutional racism, even if it didn't start out that way.
1, 2, 3, jump!
You have a weapon. Drop the weapon.
It's not like I'm just gonna be like, oh, now I'm gonna leave because you think I don't belong here. It's like, nah, I'm here. I feel like that's how racism has always been overcome.
This entire world has changed. Like, there is no going back. The capacity is here if we stick with it.
If you really had the good intention, you'd step back and let us lead, and then you would play a supporting role.
Glory days upon the horizon. Wipe your tears from your face. I'd like to invite all the panelists and all the organizers onto the screen at this point. Thank you all for joining us. Glory days upon the horizon. We are all looking for a day when we can all live in peace and joy together. Black people bear a burden. Pain is not unique to blacks, but black people suffer a unique kind of pain in this United States of America. Many a times black voices don't get heard. It has been a pleasure and a joy to be part of this program, and I couldn't be prouder. I want to thank all the panelists and the moderator and the organizers. This has been amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, for those of you who want to continue to center and listen to Black voices, I would like to make a couple of recommendations. We have a KGNU program called Black Talk, hosted by Michelle Simpson here. And it's a program for the NAACP Boulder County chapter. Please check this program out and support it. It happens every third Monday at 8:35 p.m. You can also tune in to another KGNU program called Poco Mboko, People of Color in Boulder, Colorado, second Monday of each month at 8:30 a.m. This is hosted by Tracy and Nick Nakil. We hope you can continue to invest in listening to Black voices. I think if we continue to strive to do better, we can create a better world. Like my lovely idol, Maya Angelou said, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. There is no doubt that there's many people who do really good work in Boulder, many people who strive. But unfortunately for us, we are human and we can only get better. So let's keep on trying to get better. This program has been supported by the City of Boulder Human Rights Commission and the Arts and Culture Commission. We want to give them a big shout out. But we couldn't have done this program without a lot of other people. Like they say, it takes a village. So there's many people who have stepped up to support us, and the credits will be at the end of this program in a couple of minutes. So please look for those who have reached out and helped us, and give them some love when you see them. I just wanted to close by saying one thing, that Boulder is a happy place to be. But unfortunately, it is not for everyone. Our hope is that this program and the film that is coming out will become catalyst for us to continue trying to do better. Because that is all we can do, try to do better. It is good to read books. It is good to watch movies. It is good to say good things. But it is in our actions that the rubber meets the road. That is where real change is. Our hope is that one day Boulder will be transformed. And we hope it is sooner than later. The day when Martin Luther King Jr. will look down and say, there is my dream. We hope that day will be soon. Thank you all very much. And please donate to the film, because the film becomes the continuation of this conversation. This is not who we are.com, and it will come on the screen during the credits that follow. So thank you very much, and good night. Thank you.
You out there, your petty evil don't bother me. You're playing on the clothes you wear, laughing at me, pressed clean.